The bell tolls. The midnight hour is upon us. It's time once again for two internet strangers to discuss the good and evil of the horror genre. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the terror within the Hallow-Holics Anonymous podcast.
Break into the mall at night, she says. It'll be fun, she says. There's no such thing as disco zombies, she says.
I didn't say any of that.
Damn, I thought I'd get away with that. Okay, so just to summarize everything that's happened tonight, because I know we both have poor short-term memories. We broke into the mall with a couple of sexed-up teenage friends. Zombies broke out of the mannequin supply store and murdered most of them. And we're currently trying to booby-trap the old Sears store, right?
Wrong. It's Spears. We don't have copyright to Sears.
Man, that's confusing. How about we just start the podcast?
Sounds good to me. Hi, I'm Maddy.
I'm Corey. And this is Hallow-Holics Anonymous. A show dedicated to all things horror and occasionally Halloween. I'm just bringing up, I don't know why I bother. I close out, like my computer can take it, but I always close out Discord before the episode.
Because you're a son of a bitch.
Yeah, but my new computer is gonna have 32 gigs of RAM, which is ridiculous, so it'll handle this really well.
I feel like your new computer is turning into that novel you're always writing.
No, I actually will have the last part tomorrow. Like, the motherboard will be here, and it'll be done by tomorrow night, assuming... Wait, wood is under here. Assuming I don't have any problems.
What are you knocking on?
Wood.
Particle board.
All right. I'm ready. So, we're doing horror history.
Yes!
On this day in horror history...
Tony Todd was born in 1964. That's the actor from Candyman, by the way, if you weren't aware. As well as Mick Garris in 1951, who wrote Critters 2 and screenwrote Sleepwalkers, as well as The Fly 2. And today also saw the release of the Psycho remake in 1998, as well as the movie Pin in 1988.
Mick Garris is still putting out some decent stuff, too. I don't have any examples offhand, but so's Tony Todd.
Yeah, you always recognize those names when you see them, you know?
Yeah. Tony Todd was in all the, did you watch all the Hatchet movies?
No, I watched one of them.
Okay, I own them all. That's how much I love them. But Tony Todd's in a couple of them, and he's pretty great.
Did you buy them all on December 4th?
No, why?
Well, then you need to wrap up on this day in horror history.
Oh, okay. That was on this day in horror history.
In the last episode, we had a little bit of horror news, but I have more.
I have none, so take it away, man.
Okay, well. To cite Den of Geeks quotation from the director himself, "This guy doesn't even have the rights locked down. I own 20% and he's never even bothered to contact me. Lionsgate, who recently released the Blu-ray, has never been contacted either. And they bought the home video rights from Vestron. And Hall hasn't been announcing this remake for almost a decade. He's just trying to capitalize on my title." Now, I bet you're wondering who Jim Wynorski is. Well,
I'm just wondering what you're talking about in general.
I'm referring to the Chopping Mall remake we got so upset about several months ago.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Wynorski is working on a 12-part miniseries, according to ScreenGeek.net. Each 1-hour episode is supposed to take place in real time. So, guys, if you were worried Chopping Mall was going to be changed into a story about mannequins possessed by slave ghosts... Thankfully, that is not going to happen.
I'm not sure how I feel about Chopping Mall getting the Kiefer Sutherland vehicle 24 treatment. I think that I like the idea of it being a mini series because there's a bunch of stuff in there I'd like to see more about in that world. Mm-hmm. But doing it in real time, like having an hour in the show being an hour in the day, I feel like doesn't give us enough time. Like, I will get to this, but I want to know more about the robots and that kind of thing. you know? So I don't know. We'll see. That's definitely better than the mannequin thing.
I'm really optimistic, especially because of what was done with Westworld. Even though I haven't seen it, I've heard it's really good.
Oh, it's dope. It's great, but I haven't finished it. I haven't even finished season 1 yet.
Well, now that the horror news is out of the way, this time of year really, really sucks when you work in retail. Everyone who shops gets meaner, they insult you more often, and there's nothing you can really do because your store needs the money. It's misery. It's retail hell.
Also, for those of us who don't work in retail, we have to hear about those who do work in retail complaining about working in retail. But I have a theater worker side to this too, but I want to hear the retail side first.
I had this old jerk come up to the let's start with this. I was ringing a customer up and she was buying 20 discounted items that I needed a manager to override for. So it took 5 minutes to ring up these 20 different items because all the prices had to be changed. I ring her up and she goes. And then basically the old jerk behind her, by the way, there were 2 open registers beside me to the left and to the right, insulted me after I asked him how his day was going and called me incompetent. Then I apologized and asked if there was anything we could do for him. He told me, well, you can probably leave this job because you're completely incompetent and that's about as helpful as you've been. Then he demanded to speak to my manager after I rung him up. And she apologized and he left the store.
Oh, dude.
That's
why you can't do your job.
All you can do in retail is smile. And then smile and smile some more. Because people are going to treat you like that. They're going to assume you have no real intelligence. This is the only job you can hold down, regardless of whether you might be going to grad school or not. That's my retail hell story.
I would go full on Severin from Near Dark on that dude. Like, I'd be up on that cash register with my razor spurs, listening to Cramp's version of The Fever, and it would be on.
I hate it when they ain't been shaved. Well, I'd like to keep my job.
True, yeah. So you don't want to murder people and drink their blood at work. I understand.
Yeah, you have to nervously smile and get happier and happier and happier.
The holidays aren't so bad for me now that I've settled down into a nice 9-to-5 job in a theater department. I teach students how to build stuff. We do Christmas stuff. Like I had a Christmas party at work today. It was very pleasant, very nice. But before I found my 9-to-5, when I was still freelancing and running my own Roadhouse, for those of you who aren't in the
Roadhouse
theater scene, this is not Patrick Swayze's Roadhouse. This is a...
You're not a cooler?
No, I'm not a cooler. They're normally old theaters that get touring shows in, and depending on the size of your theater or the area your theater is in, that kind of dictates what kind of shows you get. And the one I ran was in a small town, and they got crappy shows for old people. It was mostly tribute bands and choir type stuff, and especially around Christmas. Christmas, we'd get like so-and-so pretending to be Frank Sinatra performing songs from, Miracle on 34th Street, or what's that musical about Christmas where everybody gets stuck in the hotel?
I'm not familiar with a musical like that.
No, you are. They have a show in a barn. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Point is, the smaller the shows you work, the less quality shows you get into your theater.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to be that the people involved in these lower quality shows want to be treated like the celebrities they are emulating. So they tend to come in with this attitude. But like the Christmas season is when I made bank. Like that is essentially like when freelancing, you don't always know when your next job's going to be. So Christmas, you take every show you can because that and the overtime you get from that is going to pay the next couple of months of your life probably. So I have sat through some of the least famous people in the world calling me some terrible, terrible names, tearing apart my lighting designs in rude ways and just talking about how terrible I am at mixing their sound. Like, oh, I don't miss that at all. I don't miss anything about working anything Christmas related at all.
I feel like it's a time to remind people of the irony of this. When Christmas is a time to be charitable, nice to your fellow man.
It's like the one holiday where don't be a dick is like the main rule.
I guess people are like freaking out before Christmas because they're like, holy shit, there's one day a year I'm expected to be nice. I better get out all this venom as quickly as I can.
Right. Then why do it? You know what I mean? Like why bother?
Yeah.
If you're going to spit venom at people, why even bother celebrating the holiday? You're obviously not there. You're obviously like, I mean, I'm not a Christian, you know, but I believe in giving. I like to give people presents. I celebrate the giving part of
You can
Christmas.
appreciate the spirit and the message of the holiday.
Yeah, exactly. I don't mind that.
It just makes me think of Ghostbusters 2. This is not a holiday for dancing toasters, people. Or the Statue of Liberty.
That's true. It makes me think of Cabin Boy.
A nice one. You did it this time.
Yeah, I've got nothing to back that up. I just wanted to mention Cabin Boy. It's my turn. But yeah, so I think mostly because of, in fact, I know mostly because of Maddie's adventures in stressful holiday employment, she decided to do mall horror. Horror is kind of a loose term for these films. It works.
Yeah, especially in the 1980s. Everything was a horror film in the 1980s.
Yeah. A coke-fueled horror film.
Unfortunately for you Phantom of the Mall fans, we will not be doing that this episode. So I think it's time to start with our first film, Shopping Mall.
So I feel like a broken record sometimes when I say this, but the soundtrack, the synth in this soundtrack is so good.
It's funny you mentioned that because one of my first notes is this score, and especially the title number, are right up Corey's alley.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm sorry to jump in first and say that, but I get so excited when scores are this 80s and so perfectly this 80s. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They broke into the mall for the wildest all-night party of their lives.
Get that meat.
But you're never alone.
Those robots could go 8 miles an hour.
Really?
Yeah.
What's that?
Were they driven or remote controlled?
I think they were remote controlled.
Cool. I wonder if they used Johnny 5 from Short Circuit technology in those.
It's possible.
Yeah.
I know the design was inspired by the 1950s movie Gog.
Shopping mall.
Oh, haven't seen that.
Where shopping costs you an arm and a leg.
Thank you for your cooperation. God, the cameos in this too, which I'm sure you get to that.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, definitely. So first, I'd just like to say Gog is a 1950s movie about government-controlled robots that get taken over by aliens and their main goal is to destroy the human race. It was the director's famous movie. He went to the designers and he was like, hey, give me some updated version of the Gog robots. So they delivered. But going into the film, the year is 1986. Greed is good. Malls are the cultural epicenter of all human life. Hairspray has finally destroyed that deadly scourge we once knew as the ozone layer. And it's time for some naughty teens to get wild at dark at the Park Plaza Mall. But
you're the king. Sorry.
But wait, who's that in the dark? Johnny 5? This lesser-known addition to the Short Circuit trilogy. Wait, sorry. I was getting this mixed up with my fan fiction. So,
I knew you'd mention that, though. I knew it. Oh, you are wonderful. This is why I love you.
So think Evil Robo Mall Cop and Night of the Comet, and you've got yourself Chopping Mall. A movie that really sort of sucks the first time, but gets better and better with each reviewing.
It's funny you say that because I watched it twice for the show, and the first time I was so bored I only got through half of it, but I started it over again. I'm like, oh, I remember why I love this now. It gave me flashbacks to just like I dated this girl a million years ago who was really into Chopping Mall. It was one of her favorite movies. She had it on VHS. And we used to have these like all of our punk rocker friends would come over and we'd just get drunk on 40s and get rowdy and watch Chopping Mall. And I got to tap back into that nostalgia. It was pretty great.
I actually have a pretty fond memory of this movie too because when I was a freshman in college, I met a guy who worked at the computer lab. When Blockbuster was beginning to shut down, because this was like 2009, he shows up and he gives me a VHS of Chopping Mall because he knew I'd love it. I took it home and I didn't love it and I gave it away. And I really regret that. But I will never forget how awesome I thought that cover was with the robot arm holding out the grocery bag, and you could see limbs sticking out and the eyeball in the hole in the bag. And that is one of the coolest cover arts ever designed.
I miss cover art. It's just not the same anymore.
Yeah, really. I mean, there are so many movies I watched as a kid for the cover art alone. They're just not as fun.
Oh, that's why I'd pick movies at Blockbuster when I was a kid. Like, that's why I saw Frankenhooker. You could press a button on the VHS and it would say, "Want a date?" Like, oh, I miss that stuff.
It's so hard to describe to people who didn't experience it, especially as kids. The magic of going through a movie store and picking out that one or those two movies you were allowed to get. How amazing it was to explore every movie cover, to look at every description and see all the art and say, okay, this choice counts. I don't get to see anything else for another week. I've got to pick something. Mm-hmm. And then you see something bizarre, like a woman pulling her cheeks, her mouth apart to see you see her skull underneath. Or you see Jamie Lee Curtis in a bloody prom dress. Or again, the robot arm holding a dirty shopping bag. There were so many cool things. And it just
for sure.
The worlds your imagination could create.
Yeah. And not only that, but like when you go up to check out, Blockbuster had those high counters. So we used to play this game where we'd go up and check out and we'd take our pants down while we're checking out. Because nobody that worked behind the counter could see it. And it would just, because there weren't always very many people there. So only me and my 4 friends who were picking out movies would be there. 2 of us would have our pants around our ankles and everybody else would be trying not to laugh. And the people checking us out would be looking at us like we were insane because they'd have no idea what was going on. I would like to clarify for our viewers that this was just underwear. This was not nudity.
I would also like to clarify for our listeners that was only Corey and his friends. That wasn't a common tradition among most children renting movies.
Oh, this wasn't a thing?
No.
Oh, weird. I actually thought it was. Well, it was fun.
Anyway.
Small town living.
So, the director of Chopping Mall, Jim Wynorski, hopefully I'm saying that right, also directed movies like Vampirella, 976 Evil 2, Not of This Earth, and pretty much a lot of Corman-style B-movie fare. He also did a couple of skin flicks, I'm not going to lie. This was maybe his 3rd movie, and the only reason he got the directing job was because he volunteered to screenwrite on a budget, too. He really wanted to do this movie, and he co-wrote it with Steve Mitchell, who was also involved in the writing for Gem.
You say that with a little bit of venom.
Well, I really wanted to sing the song. I had to stop myself.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll get copyright strike.
This movie was pitched in a day. It was written in less than 5 weeks. It was filmed in 20 days. It had an $850,000 budget. That's incredible.
Yeah, my movie's a little more incredible. We'll talk about that budget when we get to it.
Your movie's amazing, of course.
Yeah.
For budget constraints, they had to film at night at the mall because they couldn't afford to shut the mall down during the day. As a result, there's some lethargy from some of the actors during certain sequences. And a lot of times, actually, they had to have the crew, do all kinds of stuff to keep everybody awake so they could go on to the next frame.
It was the 80s. They weren't all just full of cocaine?
Not the teenage adults.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, the producer was Concord Pictures, which is a company owned by Roger Corman, but his wife Julie produced Chopping Mall. I really want the Vestron Blu-ray that they just released because it's got 3 audio commentary tracks, and apparently it's incredible, and it's the most beautiful restoration of this movie you could actually imagine. Which, on its own, even the VHS copy, the movie aged pretty well. It doesn't show signs of... It's cheap, but it doesn't look completely cheap. It doesn't look like VHS horror.
I watched this on Amazon Prime, and there's a version you have to pay for. You'd have to rent it that apparently adds a VHS overlay to it.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, which if I wasn't hurting a little bit for cash right now, I probably would have paid the like $3 to watch that version just out of curiosity.
Well, I will admit there are certain movies that I'm going to sound like a purist this way, but there are certain movies that just look better on VHS.
Oh, for sure.
It's hard to describe really. Like Weekend at Bernie's 1 and 2 feels better on VHS.
Mm-hmm. Well, growing up, like most of my movies, because there was very little internet. Guys, you probably know this by now. I'm a little bit older than Maddie. There wasn't much internet. It was out there. The most we had was IRC chat, IRC. It's adding chat.
Thanks, Jumpin' Jack Flash, and that's Corey's childhood.
There you go.
Candyman.
Yeah, but no, we'd talk about these movies on bulletin boards or on IRC and occasionally send each other like copies of these obscure movies. And a lot of them, like the first time I saw Return of the Living Dead, that was probably a 4th generation copy that some dude made by linking 2 VHSs together. And it came from, I don't know, Ohio to New York to like Indiana before it got to me. And so I got it with that like awful tracking but it just felt so like, I don't know, it just felt more like I earned this movie, you know what I mean? And I'm seeing something I shouldn't be seeing, that kind of thing. But I still love Return of the Living Dead, and I love how clear it is on my Blu-ray, but I still think back to that crap copy I had and sort of miss it. Same with Cemetery Man. I had a really crap copy of that too.
I have a copy of My Mom's a Werewolf on VHS, and I think it's better on VHS than DVD.
I've never seen that.
It's cheesy. It's kind of, I'll get into it later, but basically Mark Pirro disowned it halfway through and he got kicked off and someone else directed it, but you can still see his humor in the film.
So I have a question about this movie for you. Did I miss why these robots started
lightning.
Killing people? Yeah, well, I got lightning, but I don't remember ever seeing lightning strike that roof computer system or something. I just remember seeing lightning happen all the time. Yeah. Was there a specific inciting moment that I missed in my 1.5 watches?
Nope.
Okay.
You know, honestly, it's funny you mentioned that because this last time I watched it, I hadn't remembered. And I looked away, and then I looked back and the guy in the control room was getting stabbed by meat hooks. And I was like, what the heck? And I rewound it and I couldn't find why. And then I looked at his cup and I thought he was drinking Pepsi or something. And I was like, is this a covert Coke ad? And he like knocks over a can of Pepsi onto the control board. But no, it's just lightning, I think.
Yeah. And that's something else I like about this movie. It goes from 0 to 60 in like 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. Like you really don't have very much downtime before the killing starts and these robots lose it. Yeah.
They establish the characters very quickly. They tell you all you need to know and then they move on and then they keep the action going, which is how a movie should be written.
Yeah. Well, they in fact establish characters that aren't even in the movie anymore. Like they use the man and woman who keep commenting during the presentation. They're both from Rock and Roll High School. They're both really famous B-movie actors and actresses. And I thought that they were going to have more to do with the movie because we spent so much time listening to those two like talk and they were developing their relationship and they just weren't in the movie anymore. Like I kind of liked that. Like that was a little bit of... That was first, I think those two were relatively famous at the time, so having them in the movie kind of gave it more clout. But I like that they were willing to just spend time on two characters that really didn't matter, you know?
Well, I've got the mother lode for you. Those were actually Mary Warnow and Paul Bartel reprising their characters from Eating Raoul.
Oh, really? I didn't get that.
There was a plan for another scene where they're sneaking into the mall at night with a horse to chop up at their restaurant and then the killer bots catch them. It was never filmed as far as I know, but there you go. It was a reference to Eating Raoul because that was, I think, another Corman produced film.
Huh. So that means Eating Raoul is also in the Hardware shared universe that I'm creating.
Mm-hmm, exactly. The only reason they didn't film the scene is because Roger Corman was like, I'm not paying for a horse.
I've decided that Chopping Mall is a prequel to Hardware, which means so is Eating Raoul now.
I don't really see how it's related to Hardware, but I mean, except that there's a killer robot. But in Hardware, that was planned.
Killer Robots Mark 1.
No, in Hardware, it was planned.
What do you mean?
It was planned for robots to kill everybody.
after the fact. What I'm talking about before, what happens before in hardware.
Well, we might as well say this comes right before T2 and then hardware.
No, those robots look nothing like the robots from T2.
The robots in this one don't look like anything from like the one from...
And plus, T2 didn't start until the 90s.
Okay, let's just agree on one thing. It all ends with Mind Warp.
Okay, yeah, you win. I'll give you that.
So the big, bulky, muscular guy, Mike, his gum chewing, that obnoxious gum chewing, was all improvised acting.
If I met that guy today, I'd punch him in the face for that gum chewing. Seriously, I'm sorry if you're listening. I won't really hit you. I'm sure you're a very nice man. But, dude, I just want to knock you out for that gum chewing.
I was wooed by the fact that he had a sweet smile. But I gotcha. The gum chewing was obnoxious.
So happy to watch him die because, I hate mouth sounds so much. So I can't listen to ASMR videos. Just all that.
Okay, you haven't found the right ASMR video. There's one ASMR video where he's just carving a block of clay underwater, and it's amazing.
Never. No. Because there's going to be mouth sounds.
No, not at all. Just he carves, and it sounds so awesome. The clay especially.
I'm not willing to risk it.
Okay.
Mouth sounds.
Okay, well, I'll admit the ear one is weird. But, like, he does some cool... When he carves the soap, that is the coolest sound ever.
Mouth sounds.
Okay, so Chopping Mall was originally released as Killbots.
Nice segue. Continue.
Though they had considered the title ROBOTS with periods in between it. But the first release of Killbots tanked. And then they changed it to Chopping Mall, and the re-release did way better. But Chopping Mall didn't really find its cult fame until it hit the VHS shelf. Now, the original concept was a phantom or a ghost killer in the mall. Lame.
Yeah. And also way overdone.
Mm-hmm. Now, the robots do seem to cruise around a lot with their arms open, and that can only really lead me to assume that, and this relates back to this being part 3 of the Short Circuit series, is that they're completely misunderstood, they don't understand their own power, and really all they want is a hug.
Yeah, I agree with that. They do keep telling their victims to have a nice day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, come on. Maybe if their victims just gave them a chance. Besides Mike, I mean, you know. I don't have any defense for that. He was chewing his gum a lot. Maybe the robot was just telling him to stop.
No, the robot did the right thing there. The robot hated him. That's an example of the robots not wanting a hug and wanting to straight murder a dude, and he deserved it.
They're pretty tame for wild sex-step teens, don't you think? I mean, let's break into the furniture store that we work at so we can make it on some couches and or beds tonight. We can even bring some popcorn to watch TV.
Maddie, I don't know who you are as a person if you think group sex in a mattress store is tame.
Okay, well, first of all, group sex implies everyone's involved in the same event. They paired up.
Oh, yeah, they paired up, but they're in the same room listening to each other bone. That's not a normal thing.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a thing people do when they have no other choice. Sometimes you have to have sex in a room full of people. But,
you picture more drugs than dancing, though, not like a B-movie and popcorn.
Yeah, just a couple of beers and, yeah, you're right. There should have been more cocaine, or any cocaine.
But, you know, honestly, most of these teens, most of them, are genuinely likable, which isn't really common in teen horror at all. And some of them, they even fight back, even more rare in any body count-esque horror film, even today.
I'm sorry, I'm stuck on this bed thing. So this is definitely why I'm going to keep my bed for the rest of my life. I will never buy a new bed. You never know how many people boned on that bed before it got to you. I don't care how new it is. Somebody might have done it on your bed.
Then build a mattress yourself. Do you know how many...
I have.
Wait, do you know how many bees boned the cotton that went into your mattress?
I'm okay with that.
Or how many geese boned the ones who sacrificed their feathers so that you could have a good night's sleep on a soft pillow? This mall must have a lot of money, like twice the U.S. military budget. And I suspect someone's getting fired tomorrow.
Oh, for sure. Well, technically everybody that ran the robots are dead.
Maybe, like, the guy who was responsible for starting this, though, maybe he's, like, just a younger version of the dude from RoboCop, and this was his testing field.
Be. Yeah, this is before RoboCop. RoboCop came out in 87.
Now, if RoboCop happened, I could understand I could understand hardware being in this universe.
Well, I mean, hardware happens in the far future, so a lot of evolution could happen between Shopping Mall and hardware.
Yeah, but just saying, because they're robots without any kind of in-between. We're looking for the missing link, guys. Find the missing link between Shopping Mall and hardware for us.
It's there somewhere.
So, I wasn't really aware that mall cops could use lethal force, but I guess somebody's going to keep these members-only jackets and Swatch watches safe.
Yeah.
So, they had planned for Allison, played by Kelly Maroney, to do a balcony fall scene. But the director tried the stunt out for fun on a much lower level and broke a rib. So he nixed that idea. He also nixed putting scorpions on her when she was hiding in that pet store with those snakes and tarantulas already. That's signs of a good director, or at least a good person. And,
at least he cared about her.
But also, apparently, he didn't even tell anyone about the broken rib because he was embarrassed. The music by Chuck Serino, whatever. He also did Munchie and Munchie Strikes Back, Evil Tunes, 976 Evil 2, and Beverly Hills Vamp, which I cannot stress enough that you should never watch.
I've never seen it.
One of the worst movies I've ever seen. I don't remember the music. It was probably good, but the movie was terrible. But why don't people talk about what an awesome final girl April was? I mean, she's definitely up there with the greats in my opinion, like Sigourney and Jamie Lee in Badassery.
Yeah, and she's great in Night of the Comet, too.
And I was trying to kind of like figure out a way to compare her to the idea of the manic pixie girl as an ideal female character, but she's the exact opposite. She's tough, she's level-headed, she's pretty much normal aside from her awesome firearm skills. Which brings me to the best line in the movie. My dad's a Marine, complete ad-lib, acting.
Yeah, that was perfect, especially as a sort of opposite statement of when her boyfriend was like, I've seen Dirty Harry 24 times. So the air duct scene where they accidentally get split up, it was a fairly predictable scene, but I thought that was a really clever way to separate the group still. Mm-hmm. Like, you knew it was going to happen, but it wasn't really happening because people were being stupid, Mm-hmm. I kind of like that they were able to keep the integrity of their characters while splitting up the groups into two. It worked really well. The last thing I have is I wonder if people can relate to movies like this anymore, because malls are mostly dead, and the ones that aren't don't really have people hanging out in them anymore. Mm-hmm. Like when I was a kid, we hung out at the mall. When I was like 13 or 14, we'd hang out at the mall. Like it was a big thing. They'd have like, big events there, like bands would play sometimes. Like there's always all kinds of stuff happening at the mall, but we live in a post-Amazon society at this point, and all the malls are dying, and I don't think that people very rarely leave their house anymore, which is why I think it's more kids can relate to movies like Unfriended, but I don't think people can relate to movies like Shopping Mall anymore, which is kind of unfortunate, because this was the sort of mall culture was a very American thing, and it's definitely like a subculture that history should remember. Even considering how cringy it could be at times, it was still the mall was a very important thing to kids who grew up in the 80s and the 90s. And I think it's a shame that sort of social experience doesn't exist anymore.
Well, it doesn't help that a lot of people felt the obsession with chasing teens off.
What do you mean?
I don't know. I've seen it in movies.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to say something socially relevant, Corey. I don't know.
Oh, that's okay.
I don't go to the mall much because I don't have money much, to be honest.
Oh, there's no reason to go to malls anymore. They're all dead. I was just at one. My girlfriend's daughter, hi Lily, has cheerleading practice. She's a competitive cheerleader, and apparently on a very good team. They practice in an old storefront in the mall, and Angie and I dropped her off, and the parents aren't allowed to watch practice. So we went and walked around this dead mall. And I remember being at this mall when it first opened, and it was great. It was laid out in a giant circle, so you could just walk around, like start where you parked and then walk around and get right back to the beginning and see everything. It was really well laid out. It was a really great place. But now there's a few stores, there's this cheerleading practice space. And I think the true sign of a dead mall is when they put a church and a community college inside of it. And both of these things were in this mall.
And it's interesting that you say that, because I actually think that's the sign of a reviving mall. It's just not reviving in the way you would typically expect. It's becoming more of a community center rather than a shopping center. It's just transitioning.
Yeah, I hope so, but I think that this place is so bankrupt at this point that it can't sustain itself this way.
Well, I blame Sears. I'm sorry, Spears.
Right, Spears. Careful there. I don't know. I blame internet shopping, but I love internet shopping, so I'm not mad at it. I just spent $1,500 on computer parts. Actually, no, I'm probably up to $1,700 in computer parts.
There's certain things at the shopping mall, though, that you can't really reproduce online. Can you go bowling at the shopping mall? I mean, can you go bowling on Amazon?
I was waiting for you to catch that. No, you can't, but you also can't go bowling in most malls anymore because they're dead, Maddie.
Okay. Can you discover an evil imp on Amazon, other than the guy who actually runs it?
Good one. No, that's a good point. And that's also a very good segue into my film. Sorority Babes in the Slime Bowl Bowl-o-Rama. Skeezy.
I know where the Tri-Delta sorority's having their initiation tonight.
Yeah, Delta Delta.
And we just might be
I love that the fat guy from Night of the Demons is in this.
Yes.
It really made my day.
When I first saw this, it gave me the impression that it was like a Night of the Demons style, but then I was like, no, it's just because of that actor.
Yeah. And he's basically playing a cleaner version of that character. I'm going to say that again in a little bit, though.
Busted.
They say where there's smoke, there's fire. And they're right.
I don't think any of the guys in this are remotely likable.
No, they're all horrible.
Curiosity killed the cat.
What's with the Bride of Frankenstein? I just don't get it.
I think that they probably didn't get it either. I think they just threw this kind of stuff together.
They ordered some costumes and the wrong one got shipped and they just made do.
Probably.
You know what? I take that back about the guys. I like the janitor.
Oh yeah, the janitor was cool.
They're wrong.
That's a different voice.
Yeah.
What the heck?
You've got to give the devil his due.
I didn't. In my research, I found nothing about that other voice. That's very strange.
Oh, that reminds me of the Return of the Living Dead when they changed the voice on that. Which the original voice that was on the VHS is way creepier of Tarman. I'm just going to say that right now.
Oh, I agree.
Okay, anyway.
All right, so filmed in 9 days, Sorority Babes in the Slime Bowl Bowl-o-Rama has unfortunately aged quite poorly.
That is a shorter filming time than Turkey or Thanksgiving.
Yeah, 9 days, $90,000. They were so broke during filming that they had to film at night in this mall. Again, they couldn't afford the bowling alley either during the day, so they filmed everything at night. So 3 nerds decide to go spy on some sorority hazing. They see some pledges getting spanked and covered in whipped cream. They get caught, of course, and they're nearly tortured, which they would have deserved by the sorority's BDSM president, which will be important later. But instead of being tortured, they and the pledges are forced to break into the local mall's bowling alley and steal a trophy.
I gotta admit, if I went to a mall with a bowling alley, that would be pretty sweet.
Oh, no doubt. I agree. As far as I'm concerned, these guys get off super light. Like, seriously, everything these guys are doing in the first part of this movie is sexual assault.
Yeah. Even the Wish.
Yeah, even the Wish. This isn't quite Revenge of the Nerds level of skis, but it's pretty damn close.
Oh, I like Revenge of the Nerds.
So do I, but it's bad, man.
We should be ashamed of ourselves.
Oh, yeah, for real. All right, so the sorority president's dad owns them all, so her and the sisters have access to the cameras so they can watch all this nonsense. It should also be stated real quick that this is the smallest fraternity ever.
Joe Bob Briggs mentioned
Yeah,
that.
exactly. I didn't think about it until Joe Bob Briggs mentioned it, but there's 3 members and 2 pledges. This is a sorority of 5. So the fact that they have access to these cameras doesn't really matter. The whole point to that is to have 3 more characters in the mix for later on. So during their little thievery adventure, our crew meets Spider, played by the best B-movie actress to ever grace our screens.
George Buckflower.
Don't you ever ruin an introduction of Linnea Quigley. That will destroy this podcast, Madeline. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, guys, but I truly, like, in as non-creepy a way as possible, adore Linnea Quigley. Like, the one celebrity on this planet I want to meet is her. The only celebrity that I would probably get struck when I see is her, because she was just this badass 80s scream queen. She was trash in Return of the Living Dead. She's Spider in this. She's just always so great. And apparently in real life, she's just like the sweetest, nicest girl.
She's terribly likable.
Yeah, yeah.
But on that note, don't go into the park. I'm just saying.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
It was like one of her first movies. It was terrible. Terrible, terrible.
So yeah, Linnea Quigley's playing Spider. She's robbing the place, but this is a really shitty place to rob. She's prying open some pinball machines and fiddling with a cash register. There's no way she could have gotten any more than maybe a couple $100 if she's lucky. So after a bit of back and forth between her and the nerds and the pledges, this whole conversation is basically just to show how badass Spider is. That's basically the theme of this movie. Spider's a badass. She's gonna fix this stuff. She bumps into the fat guy from Night of the Demons who finds a trophy, and then he drops it on the floor. This little imp with a kind of racist dialect emerges from the wreckage. He's sort of a little jive talking. It's definitely an accent that wouldn't fly in a movie now.
Yeah, but in the trailer we watched, it was this weird high-pitched thing, and now I'm wondering what that mystery is.
Super filtered voice. I'm going to have to look that up. This will give me an excuse to buy some kind of special edition and watch a documentary about it. So he promises to grant each of them a wish, and this goes exactly the way it should, and everyone lives happily ever after. The end.
Mm-hmm. It was a surprising twist.
All right, it really doesn't do that. Everybody's completely screwed. So the fat guy from Night of the Demons wishes for gold. It ends up being fake. It ends up being wood, I believe.
I love how one of his wishes is, I can get my nails done.
Yeah, that was hilarious. I guess the imp reads the lesser nerd's mind and then has a brief conversation with him, which his wish turns out to be one of the sorority pledges becomes this half-naked, super horny vixen. Apparently the 2 pledges and Linnea Quigley were considered like the trio of B-movie scream queens back then. I'm not super familiar with the girl who played Taffy, but Linnea Quigley, obviously, and the other girl definitely looks familiar.
I know one of them passed away a few years later. She was in one of the Slumber Party Massacre films.
Oh no, that was the president of the sorority. So yeah, the other pledge wished to be a prom queen, so she ends up dancing around in some dumbass dress. Like that's
while
her big
music
thing.
Plays.
Yeah, while music plays. Okay. Also, the bowling alley's janitor is locked in a broom closet for some reason or something.
For like half the movie.
Yeah, and it doesn't really explain why or how.
And that is George Buckflower, by the way.
Yeah, who is great in everything he's in, and he's great in this.
Million things. Usually plays a homeless guy. I've noticed it's a consistent role for him.
Well, he'd be good at it. I can understand that. Yeah. The sorority president's friends are eventually turned into, quote, lesser demons, one resembling a zombie and the other sort of a bride of Frankenstein. And now they have to kill everyone. Spoilers, they're mostly successful in this endeavor. Although Spider kicks their asses at one point because this movie is about Spider doing badass stuff. In a strange turn of events, the lesser nerd has a change of heart and decides he doesn't want to take advantage of his wish girl, which is the first non-skeezy thing that happens in this movie. and he sort of runs off, which we'll get back to what happens to him.
Well,
shortly.
let's be honest. She comes very close to raping him first.
She does, but it's definitely turning his... I kind of like the way they did this, because it turns his disgusting, skeezy behavior around on him, so he gets to see how she felt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They did something similar in The Craft, where one of the characters casts a love spell, and it just makes this guy completely obsessed with her.
Oh, that's upsetting.
Yeah, it really is. So the fat guy from Night of the Demons gets his head freezer burned to death in an ice machine, and it's later used as a bowling ball. The lesser demon girl is a terrible bowler, by the way. She gets a gutter ball with his face.
Which reminds me of Fright Night 2. I wonder if there's a way to do a compilation of Monsters bowling.
Probably.
Fright Night 2 pretty much beats any other possible scene. But.
So Spider at some point shoots a sorority demon. Obviously guns don't work, but bowling balls kind of do. We'll come back to that later as well.
No!
So the janitor has some great lines in this, like we were talking about, but I forgot all of them. You need to watch the movie to truly find out what they are. Although I think I'll revisit this in a minute as well.
He's pretty much the best character. I'm sorry, in my opinion. He has the best lines.
Between him and Linnea Quigley, I think they definitely got all the best lines. The zombie demon's sister tries to cover up her decomposing face with makeup at one point, and obviously it doesn't work because she's got like green oatmeal all over her face.
Yeah, it's an odd little big-lipped alligator moment.
Like I said, the lesser nerd had ran away from his super horny vixen, which leads to him getting attacked by the demon pledge sisters and gets his head deep fried, which I can never have enough deep fried heads. That's one of my favorite ways for people to die.
Oh, what about deep freezing him, like in Jason X?
Oh, that was one of my favorite parts of Jason X.
Yeah.
Just slams her head on. That was brutal.
That and we love drugs and premarital sex.
That was pretty great too. That movie is so underrated. I don't care what anybody says. Yeah. So this is something I didn't realize at first, but one of the pledges gets pulled to death, and her name is Taffy Pull.
Oh,
right? You didn't get it either?
No, I didn't catch that.
Yeah. Maddie, I can't believe it took us this long to get it, because they kept saying Taffy, and they actually said pull. Like they were just hammering it into our brain, and I totally missed it. And apparently you did too, so I don't feel quite as dumb. After fighting with Zombie Demon's sister and tossing her through the bowling chute into the alley, is it called a bowling chute? What do they call the place behind the pins? I mean, I don't care. She gets hit in the face with a bowling ball that Spider throws and is almost actually dead. But again, we'll revisit that young lady shortly. After all this happens, the president of the sorority is then turned into a lesser demon, which means she becomes a bondage dominatrix.
Yeah, I missed how that happened.
It just kind of happened. They got into the fight, and she got into a fight with the zombie demon and started laughing and being like, I killed her, I win. And he's like, yeah, well, zap.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Is bondage dominatrix the right term, Maddie? I'm not really into that kind of thing, so I'm not sure.
Why would you think I'm into that? But it's just dominatrix, bondage dominatrix.
I don't know. I assumed he maybe wrote a story. I don't know.
No, not with women.
Oh, okay. Well, so we get a little bit of background info here. The imp tells us while he's talking to the bondage dominatrix, that he's turned the sorority sisters into demons of a sort. They're stronger than humans, but they're not very smart. And he questions their effectiveness, but they seem to be doing all right, all things considered. Like, they're definitely whittling down the humans in the mall, so.
Do you want to join the sorority, Lisa?
Our heroes finally meet the janitor, and we get even more history. Apparently, a man named David McCabe, which happens to be the director David Cockatoo's porn director name.
Which is funny because you'd think David Cockatoo would be the porn director name.
Yeah, seriously. Or Dick Cockatoo. Yeah, so he makes a deal with the imp to win some bowling league stuff. He was apparently a shitty bowler, and everybody laughed at him and made fun of him about it. And this is why bullying is wrong. It leads to making deals with imp and killing all your bully friends.
Yeah, don't bully bowlers, guys. It's right. 2018.
don't bully bowlers, especially when they have access to black magic.
I feel like there's a hashtag there somewhere, but I can't quite formulate it.
Yeah, me either. I don't know. Hashtag. I got nothing. Anyway, Dave got blamed, went to jail, and he got the gas chamber, and this happened right before Christmas. He claimed his innocence up until the end. He told everybody that he used black magic to bowl better. Obviously, nobody believed him because it's a dumb story. It's also kind of the plot to this movie, which is also kind of dumb. We also find out that if the imp is put into a small container, like said trophy, he is trapped and loses his power. Much like King Solomon and his demons, which if this movie was smarter, I'd think that they were referencing the Goetia and the demons therein. But this is not a smart movie, so they're probably just relating it to the biblical story of Solomon. Mm-hmm. And even though the imp shares a lot of traits with the Goetic demons and spirits, I don't think it was done on purpose, which is unfortunate.
Biblical references can be intelligent. In fact, they tend to be really intelligent if they're obscure biblical references.
No, I agree. I 100%. This is not a dig on Christianity at all. There's a specific book called the Goetia, which supposedly is a book of summoning. It's a way to summon the demons that King Solomon had trapped. He actually used these rituals to help build the temple.
Oh, interesting. I'm not familiar with that story.
It's an interesting book. It's not all in the Bible, and I don't know how much of it is actually factual. Aleister Crowley had some stuff to do with writing the book, and he did some illustrations.
Crowley.
So that's what those OTO guys made up. All right, so our heroes, mostly Spider, now know how to beat the imp. The naked sex pledge dies. She gets whipped to death by the sorority president bondage dominatrix. Does that name work, Maddie? Is this
just dominatrix?
Okay. So our heroes fight the sorority president bondage dominatrix.
No. If she's a dominatrix, you can assume she uses bondage. You can just say dominatrix.
Okay, sorority president bondage dominatrix.
It's like saying the fat overeater man or something. You know, it's silly. Of course he's going to be fat if he overeats.
Well, so maybe she gets burned to death? Or was that chopping ball? Like, I zoned out for a little bit.
She's burned.
I watched this movie twice, and I can't remember if she got burned to death. Oh, it was in the preview. The janitor then is stabbed by the Bride of Frankenstein demon sorority sister, so he's dead now. Can you ask me what his last words were?
What were his last words?
God damn that fucking imp!
Well, you gotta give him more of a raspy voice, you know, when you say it. So try again.
God damn that fucking imp!
Okay, you're giving too much of a southern drawl.
That one hurt a little bit more.
Yeah.
God damn that fucking imp!
That's close enough.
All right, we'll go with that one. The Spider and the lead nerd here start to fall in love. Whatever. I don't come anywhere near caring about that.
I can partially sympathize him within this story because at least he was a real lightweight and he kind of didn't know what he was doing and didn't want to go to the sorority in the first place.
True, I guess, but he still did. You know what I mean? That still doesn't make him a good person.
No, fair enough.
Yeah. So sorority bride chases them with an axe. She fights Spider. Lead nerd does nothing. Spider cuts her head off and she falls through the magical locked doors to the outside, which allows them to escape. And then Spider sends the nerd out to get a car because he's utterly useless.
He's so useless.
I'm so glad we get a strong female lead, and I'm so glad it's Linnea Quigley, and I'm sure I could go off on a tirade about role reversal and how well it usually works in film, but this dude sucks, and I just don't care.
You know, Linnea was offered any role she wanted, and she read the script, and she was like, I want this character.
She wanted Spider because she's a badass.
You know, what's weird is I don't think we see her breasts once in this film.
No, you don't.
Which is so bizarre.
Well, I mean, that's good because that proves that she's got clout without just getting naked. You know what I mean? She's honestly a very versatile actress. I adore her.
Well, let's dial that back a bit. She's very likable.
No, I will not dial that back a bit. You stay out of my life. Surprise, zombie demon sister is not dead. She's in the back of the car with lead nerd. They wreck, and as they wreck, the imp watches, and he's so distracted by this. This is Maddie at some point earlier we were chatting, mentioned how dumb the imp was. And this is a perfect example. He's so distracted by this car wreck that Spider is able to trap him in a tobacco can. I am not going to make a Prince Albert in a can joke here because those are super dumb, but it is Prince Albert tobacco. They peace out to Spider's place to read the Bible or something before the cops get there and just leave the imp in a can outside of the mall. That shit got open nearly immediately, I guarantee. I'm sure a bunch of cops, firefighters, and EMTs probably died because of Spider and lead nerd's carelessness. Shame on them for hurting the heroes of this nation.
And on that note, I think real quick, we need to listen to something in solidarity with the suffering in this film that I was greatly reminded of when I watched this imp.
All right.
Action, grabbing the nation, doing the freak. Call now, 1-900-490-FREAK.
Oh my God, I remember this.
What's scamming from New York to LA? Call now, 1-900-490-FREAK. What's happening? What's jamming? Party till you drop. Dialing here the action. What's happening? What's not? Call now, 1-900-490-FREAK. $2 a call.
Oh, I forgot those weird phone freak lines.
Yeah, this message was brought to you by Freddy Freaker, and that's what the imp made me think of.
I knew a bunch of phone freaks in the 90s who like would spend time in those chat rooms, but they had those like special dialers that they had modded to get free phone calls and stuff, so they didn't have to pay the 900 fees.
So, okay, so you know a little bit about Freddy Freaker. Sorry to get off topic since you knew people who did it. What's the deal?
I don't know specifically what the deal with the number was, but for a lot of those party lines back in the day, they were, if I remember correctly, they were like sort of message boards for speech. Like phone freaks and hackers would like talk on those instead of like in the bulletin boards and stuff. I mean, it also got, there were party lines too where people would just call up, like lonely people would just call up and talk to each other. It was very much like chat rooms we have now, just with voices.
I don't know if that's sadder or actually more social.
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't pay for chat rooms.
Yeah, and you never really did. IRC was one of the first, and it was always free.
At any rate, back to the movie. I never thought I'd hear myself say it, but Munchies was better.
Yeah, I'm a little bit torn. I don't like this movie as much as I used to. I think I've definitely, like you said, I've definitely grown out of it some. I hate the male characters in this movie. I hate the way they treat women in this, but I do love Linnea Quigley as Spider. I think she's great in this. This movie definitely has its moments. This won't be the last time I watch it, but this will go down in history as the time I realized I'm growing up. And that's very sad for a 40-year-old man to realize. 41. I just turned 41. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I've watched a lot of stupid sex comedies. I have an 80s movie pack on my shelf right now. But this hazing scene in particular was super uncomfortable and not, I couldn't even see it being sexy at all. I mean,
no.
Logically, as hard as that paddling sounded and as long as it was, those women wouldn't have been able to sit down for a while. There'd be awful bruising, probably damaged blood vessels. And also, another thing.
See, I knew you knew about this stuff. That's why I needed to ask you about the terms.
I know about medical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I listen to a lot of Sawbones.
Tell people what you need to.
Okay. Well, everyone should know about this next bit. Highly ineffectual showering technique. It shouldn't be that difficult, lady, to hurry up and get dressed and to wash off the whipping cream. It doesn't take like half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really ineffectual. It's like she didn't know how to shower. She wasn't even using soap.
Yeah, they were really bad at showering, and they were really long at showering.
Yeah.
I wonder why. This was a full moon movie, and I had no idea at first. I honestly thought this was one of Troma's movies for a long time.
Really?
Yeah.
I can see that just by the name.
Yeah, and that's probably why. But we'll come back to the name in a moment.
But if you see a small monster or a puppet thing, it's probably full moon.
Yeah, that's a good point. So the main nerd kid, whose name I never bothered learning, he was only 19 at the time of filming. He's also a musician in a band called The Previous, which I know nothing about. And he hosts a radio show. This is all according to Joe Bob Briggs, of course. He hosts a radio show called Radio 8 Ball. People call in with questions and they get answered by randomly selected songs. He was also in Nightmare on Elm Street 4. He's also in the Attic Expeditions with Jeffrey Combs, which I feel like I saw and liked, but I have no memory of it whatsoever. So the fat guy from Night of the Demons is basically playing the same dude, only after a shower and a change of clothes.
He still eats a lot.
The original overseas title was The Imp. Luckily, we got Sorority Babes and the Slime Bowl Bowl-o-Rama, which is one of the best movie titles ever, second only to perhaps Fertilizing the Blaspheming Bombshell.
Well, what about Hell Comes to Frogtown?
Hell Comes to Frogtown is pretty great, too. But I've always really liked the title Fertilizing the Blaspheming Bombshell.
Well, you should look at some Brazilian movie titles. Like, This Night I Shall Consume Your Grave, or This Night I Shall Eat Your Soul. This night your soul will eat me in the grave. All kinds of weird stuff.
So a lot happens on this night.
Yeah.
So, like I said, this movie was shot in 9 days with only a $90,000 budget, and I miss that. I miss the days of straight-to-video releases. I mean, a lot of them weren't very good, but I think back then, more often than not, they were fun to watch, good or not.
Well, this also goes back to that video store ritual, too. Like, you get stuff like that now, but it's all digital, it's all online, it's all immediately released. You're not going anywhere, you're just flipping through a page on your computer.
Yeah, exactly. And people are still making movies like this. They're just not as good. There's always bad CGI. I mean, every once in a while you'll find a gem like Thanksgiving or, well, Thanksgiving 3 or Die You Zombie Bastards. But more often than not, it's just poorly acted, boring crap. I really miss the 80s.
It's almost like nowadays they're more concerned about just filming the concept they had that they liked and not having fun doing it.
Yeah, and just not being self-aware about what they're making either a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm. You can make some incredible films with a very, very low budget.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you can find very good actors who don't require you to pay them.
True.
I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying they're out there.
Yeah, true. You should always pay an artist when you can, or at least make a deal if everything works out down the road to give them part of your profits.
If you get upset
over art.
Yeah, if you're concerned that you can't make if you can't make money in short films or independent films, and you don't want to pay the people who are working with you, you're part of the problem.
Yeah, very, very true. So yeah, that's all I got, guys. Thank you very much for listening to me talk about how much I love Linnea Quigley.
Now, both of us did watch the Joe Bob Briggs version.
Mm-hmm.
And his rant before the movie was absolutely hilarious.
Oh, yeah. It was pretty great.
You know, some people kind of have a disconnect when they hear someone with a southern drawl rant. They just assume they're being racist, but in fact, I tried to watch this with someone once, and he was calling him racist, and I was like, dude, he's talking about taking the train.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't say, he called Californians space cadets, and that's as far as he went, but, I mean, they kind of are space cadets.
Yeah, and he's totally not wrong either. Like, I've been to LA a couple of times, and I had no idea there was a subway there.
Apparently a good one. Who knew?
Yeah. As always, guys, you can tweet us at Nowhere23 or search the Twitters for Hallow-Holics.
You can also check our blog out at Hallow-Holics Hallow-Holic.blogspot.com or Hallow-Holic.wordpress.com.
If you are so inclined, you may search for our portal, HHA, at podpedia.com. They forced me to say this.
They have not contacted us once since they built our page for us. I don't know what he's talking about.
But I will still continue to talk about it because that's who I am.
You can also email us at hallowholics@outlook.com.
Please contact us. We're so alone.
Oh my gosh, I think I hear some disco music.
No, not again.
Corey!
I don't know why I said that.
Corey, quick, distract them with 8-tracks!
That's a dead technology, Maddie. You know how I am with that. Can't I just play them something on my phone?
No! They need 8-tracks! 8-tracks and hair gel!
God, it's too late for that. Let's just let them have us. No!